Good afternoon. Welcome to Career Launchers YT channel for MBA aspirants. Continuing our series with previous year's questions, I have chosen a passage from CAT 2021 slot 1 today. Let me quickly set up the chat with you on YouTube so that I can answer your questions and see your responses. All right. So, as usual, this is a very nice passage. It's easy to read. It's a passage based on biology. If you have seen the trend of CAT question papers, at least one passage is on natural sciences, and generally it's on biology. There's a very nice passage on penguins one year. One year there was a very nice passage on elephant behavior and grove snails, and today I have chosen a passage which is on cuttlefish. Okay, and the reason I chose this passage is, again, biology passages are easy to read. There's not, unlike philosophy and literature, the language is easy. There generally is an experiment that they talk about, some experiment about some aspect of behavior, and the questions are based on that. So this turned out to be uh, a passage which some students found quite difficult. So let's see how you find it. All right, as usual, I'll show you each slide for 1.5 minutes. I know some of you will read it in 1 minute, which is very good, but there are others who may be slightly slow. So I'll leave it to 1.5 minutes, which is the average reading time for a slide. Actually, it's a little more than what is required. Then I'll summarize the passage for you. All right. All right, let's move to the next slide. All right. Okay, let's again look at the passage and summarize it. Cuttlefish are full of personality. As behavioral psychologist Alexander Schnell found out while researching the cephalopods' potential for self control. Let me just get my pen color right. It was not working. Okay. All right, we are set. So they said that self cuttlefish have personality. Now that's a surprise, and they wanted to. On what basis did the behavioral ecologist say that? Because she had uh, researched on its potential to display self control. And self control is said to be the cornerstone of intelligence. It's an important prerequisite necessity for complex decision making and planning for the future. What is the experiment she did? She used a modified version of the marshmallow test. What's the marshmallow test? The original marshmallow test, psychologist Walter Mischel presented children between 4 and 6 with one marshmallow and told them if they waited for another 15 minutes and didn't eat it, he would give them a second marshmallow. A long term follow up study showed that children who waited for the second marshmallow had more success later in life. So, here the marshmallow test wanted to test self control and found that children who displayed self control had more success later in life. The new version is the cuttlefish version of the experiment. It looked a lot different. The researchers worked with six cuttlefish under 9 months and presented them with seafood instead of sweets. Preliminary experiments showed that cuttlefish favorite food is live grass shrimp. Raw prawns are so so, second preference, and Asian shore crab is nearly unacceptable. Since the researchers couldn't explain to the cuttlefish that they would have to wait for their shrimp, they trained them to recognize certain shapes that indicated when a food item would become available. The symbols were pasted on transparent drawers so that the cuttlefish could see the food that was stored inside. One drawer, labeled with a circle to mean immediate, held raw king prawn. Another drawer, labeled with a triangle to mean delayed, held live grass shrimp. And during a control experiment, square labels meant never. All right, so this was the setup of the experiment. What did they do? If their self control is flexible and I hadn't trained them to wait in any context, you would expect the cuttlefish to take immediate reward in the control, even if it's their second preference, says Schnell. And that's what they did, right? So they just took whatever food was available. That showed the researchers that cuttlefish wouldn't reject the prawns if it was the only food available. In the experimental trials, the cuttlefish didn't jump on the prawns if live grass shrimp were labeled with a triangle. Many waited for the shrimp drawer to open up. Each time the cuttlefish showed it could wait, the researchers stacked another 10 seconds to the next round of waiting before releasing the shrimp. The longest a cuttlefish waited was 130 seconds. You understood? They gave it immediately, they made it wait and give the more preferred food, and the cuttlefish showed that it was willing to wait around 130 seconds, was the longest the cuttlefish waited. Schnell says that the cuttlefish usually sat at the bottom of the tank and looked at the two food items while they waited. Sometimes they would turn away from the king prawn as if to distract themselves from the temptation of the immediate reward. In the past studies, humans, chimpanzees, parrots, and dogs also tried to distract themselves while waiting for a reward. Not every species can use self control, but most of the animals that can share another trait in common. Those who display self control have another trait in common. What is that? They have long and social lives. Cuttlefish, on the other hand, are solitary creatures that don't form relationships even with mates or the young. We don't know if living in a social group is important for complex cognition unless we show that these abilities are lacking in certain social species, says Jennifer Wong. That's where the passage ends. First question. I'll show you the question, I'll read out the options, you mark the option that you think is right, and then I'll explain it. All of the following constitute a point of difference between the original and modified versions of the marshmallow test, except that, right? The former correlated self control and future success, while the latter controlled self control and survival advantages. The former was performed, this is, I mean, the author hasn't explained anything about correlation. It happened later. The point of difference, except what are the point of difference? This is not a point of difference. Former was performed over a long time span than the latter. This is a point of difference. The former was had human subjects, by the latter has specific. This is a point of difference. The former used verbal communication, latter had to use symbolic. This is also correct. So B, C, D are correct. Therefore, A is the correct answer. Question 2. Which one of the following, if true, would best complement the passage's finding? For this, what do you have to do? Go back to the last paragraphs, right? He said, the last paragraph, he says, not every species can use self control. Most of the animals share another trait, that is long social life. Cuttlefish, on the other hand, are solitary creatures. And last, he says, we don't know if living in a social group is important for complex cognition unless we show these abilities are lacking in less social species. So, cuttlefish does not share that trait. It is not a social species. And the author says we don't know if living in a social group is important for such complex cognitive decisions unless we show that these abilities are lacking in less social species. So what would the thing complement a passage's finding that the cuttlefish live in big groups that express sociability? Then that will go with the author's uh, argument that to most of them who showed self control uh, exhibited long social lives. If the cuttlefish also do it, then that would complement the passage's finding. Therefore, B is the correct answer. In which one of the following scenarios would the cuttlefish's behavior demonstrate self control? What does the cuttlefish like most? Um they love their first example is their favorite food is glass shrimp, next is raw prawns, and they don't like Asian shore crab. So, which one would demonstrate self control when they wait for grass shrimp, right? So let's look at the options. Asian shore crabs and raw prawns are simultaneously relieved while a live grass shrimp drawer labeled with a triangle is placed in front of the cuttlefish to be opened after 1 minute. If the cuttlefish waits, that shows that it has self control. Raw prawns are released while a live grass shrimp drawer labeled with a square is placed in front of the cuttlefish, but square is it will never be open if the cuttlefish will eat up the raw prawns. Live grass shrimps are released while two raw prawn drawers. If this is released, it doesn't show self control because that's what they prefer. Raw prawns are released while Asian shore crab, this doesn't show self control because their main preference is glass shrimp. So A is the correct answer. Which one of the following cannot be inferred? You have to be very careful. Okay, which one cannot be inferred from Schnell's experiment? That means three options can be inferred, one cannot be inferred. Intelligence in a species is impossible without sociability. Then the cuttlefish example will go against it. So this cannot be, because cuttlefish has shown intelligence, but it is not social. So we know that A is the answer. But let's quickly look at the other one. Like human children, cuttlefish are capable of self control. Yes, that's why they wait for their favorite food to arrive. They exert self control with the help of diversions. It says that they look at the tank, but sometimes they look away. Cuttlefish exercise choice when it comes to food. Therefore, the correct answer is option A. Good. All right. So, most students went wrong with options 3 and 4. I hope you got that right. Do you have any questions for me? All right, from next week, probably we will be starting a new series. If all the passages are done, I'll have a look, and we'll have passages from any article patterned on CAT passages. I think we've completed all the past year passages. If something is left, we'll cover it. But starting next week, we'll probably have uh, passages based on CAT patterns, on which I'll ask not just RC questions, some vocabulary, some grammar questions, just for us to learn all aspects of aptitude training. All right? Okay, I will see you again next Saturday at the same time. Until then, stay safe, keep doing what enjoy life. All right? If you liked the video, please press the like button, share and subscribe to our channel, and attend all our sessions. Thank you.